If you're watching this video, it could be because you feel like you're going crazy, like you're the problem. It feels like you're on a roller coaster ride with your manager and you feel like you're losing it. You're starting to feel frustrated. You're starting to feel like you are to blame. You're starting to feel misunderstood. And if this keeps happening, you start noticing some changes in your body. You start noticing how you're showing up at work, and the problem just becomes worse. If all of this sounds familiar, you are not imagining things. You could be dealing with a pattern of behavior from your manager that is hard to define but easy to feel. It has a real impact on your confidence, your clarity, and your well-being. And this video is for you today to understand the behaviors of these managers so you can identify them early and deal with it. Hi, I'm Mel. I have 30 years human resources experience, most of it in employment law in New Zealand. I have been at the receiving end of bullying, I have been investigating bullies, and I've wrapped some process around it. I've inadvertently also been used to bully employees. It's because of that that I've stepped out of the workplace and into my own environment where I now try and help people understand what it is they are dealing with and what to do about it. So let's put some common language around this behavior so that it's easily recognizable for you. I'm going to outline a term that might be descriptive. I'm going to give you some examples of how that shows up in the workplace. So if you spot anything that sounds familiar to you, that has happened to you, please comment below. The first behavior I'm going to talk about is mixed messaging. I think the term speaks for itself. And a couple of examples that you might see of that is, imagine 1 minute you're told that you can be flexible with your time, and then when you do take the opportunity to be flexible, you're nailed for not being at work when you're supposed to be. Imagine you're told that they value work-life balance, but when you leave at 5 p.m. you get this sidelong glance to say, what are you doing going home? So you're told, we value your judgment, but every decision you make is then questioned or even reviewed or even reversed. They say, we're pretty informal here, we don't have a lot of rules, but then when you break some unwritten rule, you're really pulled up hard. The next one is constant fault finding or constant criticism. This could be where you are picked on for your appearance, for your work, for your performance, for a variety of things. So one example of this is your work isn't quite right. So even when you are following the instructions right down to the detail, you are told it's too long, it's too short, there's not enough detail, there's too much detail. They could also be giving you constructive feedback, disguised as criticism. When this happens, there's just no acknowledgement of anything that you're contributing. It's just a constant stream of criticism. One of the other ways you can see this is when you are criticized in front of other people. They might point out your mistake inadvertently at a meeting, kind of purposefully, or they would CC other people in when they respond to you and point it out. Sometimes this could be quite personal. They could attack things like your tone, your appearance, maybe even your expression. They could say things like, you're looking so tired, or hey, you should really smile more. Another common thing is when you're criticized, but they're not very clear on what exactly it is you're supposed to do. Maybe they tell you things like, your tone was a little off in that email, but they don't give you any way of understanding what you should correct. You're not even given any examples of what they expect of you. They might say things like, your performance is not quite where I expect it to be, but you have no idea what any of this means. You have no real goals and you have no real targets. All you get is disapproval. One of the worst ones is when you get a random outburst. You get this one comment or this one moment or this one event where suddenly you are on the receiving end of this anger and this blame. For instance, you might be in a meeting and you're asking a question and suddenly they just snap at you and they say, just figure it out yourself. I don't have time to spoon feed you. They might explode over the tiniest little thing like a typo error in an email. And they could say things like, don't you proofread your work? How can I trust you with anything? It could be that somebody else makes a mistake and then you're blamed because they say, you should have known better. You should have seen that coming. Another common one is where they ignore your expertise. Even when you know that you can help, your ideas are dismissed and you're minimized. or your ideas aren't invited in the first place anyway. A common one is where they bring outside help in to do the thing that you're supposed to be doing. They might say something like, we've just brought this person on board to have a look at things. Hope you don't mind. We just wanted a fresh perspective. The other thing to spot quite easily is that they are the cleverest person in the room. This is a massive indicator of insecurity because most good managers would know exactly that they need to make the other people shine in the room. Of course, the other one is taking credit. Maybe you're doing all the heavy lifting and they're claiming the praise. They could present your ideas in a meeting as their own and say, I thought we should do this, and you know that you created that idea. They could send reports to higher ups and say, here's what I put together. When the project then gets praised, they would say things like, yes, I worked really hard on this. I know this is a lot to take in. I've put all 12 of these traits into a free Dirty Dozen PDF checklist so you can track them. The link is in the description below. One of the things they commonly do is divide and conquer. Remember that they are quite insecure. So it's really important to them that teams don't collaborate, because then they would talk and discover their insecurity. So what they do is they pit colleagues against each other to compete on purpose, despite the fact that that's probably not good business. One of the things I personally experienced is when they withhold information that they give to everybody else. And then when you pull them up on it, they go, oh, didn't I give you the update? One of the things they commonly do is they are dishonest. They cannot help themselves because they cannot tell the truth, right? They make promises, they create expectations, and they just never deliver. They would tell you things like, I've got your back, and then when the chips are down, they'll be gone. You won't be able to find them anywhere. When you pull them up on something they said, they might say, well, you must have misheard. I never said that. Another common thing is that they can't make decisions. They are extremely indecisive. So what they do is they have you make the decisions and then they pass it off as their own idea, if it works, of course. So if you ask a question or ask for direction, they'll deflect you. They'll say things like, what do you think we should do? And they'll do it every single time, even on critical things, where they really should intervene and tell you what to do. And of course, following on from that, you get very blurry responsibilities. You might end up doing 3 different jobs and none of them are clearly defined. They'll assign work to you and then they'll say things like, you can just take care of this for now, we'll formalize this later. They'll also do things like they'll expect you to lead on something where you have no authority. That kind of ties your hands behind your back. So if you've experienced many or even a few of these, I'm really sorry. The thing is, if it is happening regularly, you are probably dealing with a difficult manager. And you might feel like you're quietly losing your mind. That is not uncommon. Don't judge yourself for that. This is not your fault. The important thing is to recognize the patterns of behavior in these people because they are affecting you physically, mentally, emotionally. They are having an impact on your job and your livelihood. And when you can start recognizing this behavior, that is when you can start doing something about it. Please share this information or like it or subscribe or comment below. All of those things help spread this message. And the more people who know how to recognize a toxic manager, the better, so they can help themselves. Very often, when these things are happening to us, we start responding from survival mode rather than a really calm, centered place. And that reaction, unfortunately, can end up backfiring on us. So that's why I'm going to make another video on the 10 survival strategies you should avoid when you're dealing with this kind of person.